Good morning, everyone, and Happy New Year. It has been a minute. Welcome to CMRO's quarterly meeting, our first one for 2025. It's glad to see so many people on here. I know it is exactly 10 a.m., and we are certain there will be more people joining us, but we did not want anyone to wait. For those of us that are here, we want to honor and respect your time. This may look a little different for you guys this year. As you can see, normally when we use this platform, we're not visible, but our leadership team is on the call and we all have our cameras on. And this morning with us, we also have Christina from Liberty. We are going to make a slight adjustment to the initial schedule. So we're going to have Liberty present first, and then we will cover region specific and DDA specific items. So, Donna, can you take us down to Liberty?
Um, yes, give me a second.
Yeah. Please note that this meeting is also being recorded, and so this should be accessible to everyone at a later time. Christina, take it away.
Good morning, everyone, and thank you, Bianca, for the introduction. Thank you all for having us this morning. We're excited to be able to be here and provide an update on person-centered excellence evaluation activities. My name is Christina Dixon, Executive Director at Liberty Healthcare for Maryland's Quality Improvement Organization. Also on the call with us this morning are Lisa Gottschalk and Amber Rose, our quality managers that help oversee evaluation activities. You could go to the next slide, please. So today we're going to give you an overview on all three of these areas that you're probably familiar with. We're going to start with system compliance this morning, and that helps us to monitor waiver assurances and tells us to what degree DDA standards are being met. We monitor those waiver assurances through qualified provider reviews, claims, critical incident and restraint investigations, level of care, and person-centered plan reviews. So you'll be seeing data collected throughout all of those different types of reviews on the next three slides. Next slide, please. So here we wanted to give you a high-level overview of where Maryland is both meeting and exceeding compliance, where some of those areas of emerging compliance are, and where we're seeing some things that are below compliance in Maryland. And this data that we're going to share on this slide and the next two slides come from January through March 2024. And so you can see here we have 5 areas where we are regularly meeting or exceeding compliance. And that's with the initial level of care process, meaning that it includes timely and complete comprehensive assessments for new enrollees. Also exceeding compliance is participants having choice of waiver programs and services and providers. And that is demonstrated through the participant signature on the person-centered plan document. We also see that investigation timeliness and completeness from the Office of Healthcare Quality is exceeding the expectations, above 85% compliance. Financial accountability and traditional and self-directed claims that are reviewed are regularly above compliance standards as well. And then similarly, billing compliance from coordinators of community service. Next slide, please. Okay, and then we have a few indicators of emerging compliance here. And that's these 5 areas are hovering between that 75 to 85% compliance. So we're almost to the full compliance, but here's some areas where we might see if there are some small strategies that we can put in place to nudge above that 85% compliance. And those are for initial level of care determinations being completed prior to waiver services. That's right there in that emerging compliance area. And we also see that redetermination of level of care assessments that are completed timely for waiver participants is in the emerging compliance area. Staff meeting all training and qualifications for dates of service of claims that were reviewed is emerging. And then participant annual service plan timeliness. Those plans being approved before the previous PCP expires. And also critical incidents reported on time falls into that emerging compliance as well. Next slide, please. And then here we have a few performance measures that are below 75% compliance. So we are seeing that licensing and certification documentation for provider renewals are not always being submitted timely and completely. We see that participants individually assess needs and goals are not addressed in their PCP at the rate that we would like to see to meet compliance. Participant service plans, where the services were delivered in the type, scope, amount, and duration. The coordinator of community service monitoring visits, so the timeliness and completeness of those visits. Also, monitoring of participant progress towards outcomes by coordinators of community service. The annual health risk screening tool, timeliness and completeness is falling below that 75% compliance, and having the proper procedures followed for unauthorized restraints. So the monitoring of the performance measures that we just took a look at help us to ensure the minimum access and delivery of home and community-based services waiver programs. And so in addition to those measures, we also want to think about ways in which we can build quality. So we are going to be sharing a few resources with you today. And on the next slide, we have a advocate guide that was created by the Council on Quality and Leadership, as you might know as CQL. So here there are some ways that we can think about supporting people and have them thinking about giving us better direction on how they would like us to provide service to support them in community life. The Advocate Guide here was created by CQL, and it's a tool that you can use to gather feedback directly from people you support about their experience receiving services from your organization. So many of you conduct annual satisfaction surveys with the people that you support. This is a tool that could be used to help you develop or expand your current satisfaction survey. You'll see here some questions about integration and access to the community to help you gauge how that's going for people. And then on the next slide, we have some information about individual rights. If you could go back just one slide, please. I think we skipped one. One more. Yep, right there. That's it. Thank you. Okay, and this slide, as part of the guide, also provides some questions to help understand people's experience related to rights and having personal space or visitors in their home. And then our next slide also offers some questions around independence. That you can think about including in your satisfaction surveys. So not only does this advocate guide help to ask questions about people's integration and access to the community, rights and independence, but it also has material that helps to educate people about home and community-based settings final rule and how it applies to them. So it has some more informational and educational material along with it. And if you're interested in accessing this resource, you can find it if you go to the next slide, we have a link here for you. You can find it on CQL's website, or you can reach out to any team member at Liberty, and we'll be happy to provide that resource to you. Next slide, please. Thank you. So next, we want to take a look at system quality and participant outcomes. So this is our network accreditation data collection activities from the Council on Quality and Leadership. And the basic assurance review, it tells us to what degrees are systems and practices in place that support person-centered excellence. And the personal outcome measure conversations that we conduct help to tell Maryland to what degree our personal outcomes are of participants being met and supported. Next slide. So here you'll see the top two data points are from a basic assurances, and the bottom two are from personal outcome measures. And we want to take a look today at, are people being supported to have family and friend involvement in the way that they prefer? And I want to note that sometimes we call family and friends natural supports as well. So 35% of provider organizations in Maryland that we've conducted a basic assurance review with to date help us to see that systems are in place to identify, engage friends and family. Again, that's 35% of the time. But 60% of the time, practices are seen within an organization that identify, engage family and friends. What that tells us is that staff within an organization often are 25% of the time more often engaging, have practices or things that they're doing to engage friends and family, but maybe policies or training or other systems within the organization aren't actually outlining how to do that quite as often. And then we see that 26% of people who participated in a personal outcome measure conversation were connected to friends and family in the way that they preferred, while 18% of people who participated in a personal outcome measure conversation actually had supports from paid services to connect with friends and family in the way that they wanted. And so when thinking about individualized support and outcomes people want related to friends and family or natural supports, we must first ask the person who is important to them and how often they want to connect with each person. Organizationally, we can ask a few questions. So do we recognize the value of natural supports in people's lives to promote identity, personal security, and continuity? We can also ask, do policies and practices reflect how our organization promotes natural support networks for continuity in existing relationships and new ones? And do policies and practices reflect how the organization assists people to access their natural supports? And another question we can think about is, do staff receive training to support people's families and friends to communicate with them or keep in contact and maintain relationships? Next slide, please. Thank you. So it's important to have a system within your organization to work with people to identify who is important, what method they prefer to communicate with the person, and how often they'd like communication to occur within that relationship. So on this slide on the right-hand side, here's an example of one organization in Maryland did to set up a system to help identify those things for the people that they're supporting. Other organizations could consider adopting this tool or something similar and modify it to work within your own organization. But here we have something that identifies the important people, how someone would like to get in contact with them, and how often. And I want to also point out that this natural supports identifier, it's a tool that was homegrown in Maryland by Gallagher Services. And we're really thankful that Gallagher shared this with us as a part of their basic assurance review and are allowing us to share it with you today. Next slide, please. Thank you. So also, as part of the natural supports identifier, you may think about identifying important dates in someone's life. So whose birthdays or anniversaries, memorial, or other special dates do people want to be able to remember to reach out to others when those dates come around? And here we've got a quote from the Council on Quality and Leadership about natural supports. And what they say are that personal connections are natural safeguards that promote people's health and safety. Data from the personal outcome measures establishes a link between health and safety and people's connections to natural support networks. And these connections have been shown to prevent abuse, neglect, and to promote health, safety, and personal security. These are ties that bind or links to the greater world that create a blanket of security that internal organizational supports cannot duplicate. So as you can see, when people have friends and family and other natural supports in their lives, they're more likely to have outcomes of health, safety, and access to their community present. We do have copies of this natural support identifier. If anyone's interested in receiving that, you can reach out to me, and I'll put my email in the chat as well as it'll be on the last slide that we have for you here today. Next slide, please. And lastly, today we want to also give you a little bit of information about participant and family voice through the National Core Indicator Surveying that Liberty has conducted on behalf of DDA. And this information helps to tell us to what degree are participants experiencing quality services and supports. Next slide, please. So here we have data from the 2022-2023 National Core Indicator participant responses. So these are actually people who receive services from DDA who responded and what they're telling us. So 89% of the people who participated in the survey have access to the internet. And this is, I will say, significantly higher than what we see nationally. The national average is only 84% of people have access to the internet. However, only 65% of those people are using the internet on a daily basis, and 38% of people use technology in their everyday life to help do more things on their own. We also heard that 78% of people surveyed did have a cell phone, but of those people who don't have a cell phone, 55% of them did want one. And that is also higher than the national average of 47%. So we should think about using this information to recognize what people do and do not have available to them related to technology, and to help people set goals they desire for additional access to technology. Technology plays a critical role in people's ability to connect in the way they prefer with the people they prefer. And increasing access to technology can help people have increased safety, security, and community connections. Next slide, please. So lastly, we just wanted to share the webpage for the Quality Improvement Organization on DDA's website, where you can find additional resources, standard operating procedures, newsletters, and data summaries and reports that are available to you. Next slide, please. If you have additional questions, you're welcome to reach out to us. I also want to just share, as I noted before, that Gallagher did generously approve sharing their natural supports identifier with us, along with some other resources that they've approved for us to share widely. They have a Me and My Rights informational document, a money skills assessment, a rights assessment, and a safety and supports assessment. Each of these different tools are aligned with person-centered practice and helps their organization to create individualized supports and have systems in place that promote outcomes with people. And if you are interested in receiving any of those, please feel free to reach out to me and we'll make sure that you get a copy of those. And also, don't forget to check out that advocate guide on CQL's webpage. Thank you all for your time this morning. I hope the information was helpful to you, and thank you for having us, Bianca.
You are welcome. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Christina. We always appreciate you guys providing information. So, for our providers, if you have not yet gotten a visit from Liberty yet, they'll get to you at some point. So, they are working through our processes, ensuring that we remain compliant and provide overall feedback to us as an organization. So there are a couple of questions. Someone is asking, Christina, is there any information about how many participants were surveyed and when the information was collected?
Sure. So for the National Core Indicators surveying, that's conducted on an annual basis. So we've made it through 2 cycles so far since working with you all and are in the third data collection cycle. The data that I shared this morning from the National Core Indicators was collected in the 2022-2023 survey cycle, and about 533 participants in Maryland were surveyed that year. We're also working on some data summaries for you from the 2023-2024 survey year, and we'll have those available soon. And then for personal outcome measures, in the first cycle of data collection, there were about just over 200 participants who participated in a personal outcome measure conversation. And in this year, this cycle date, we've got just over 100 people so far. So we'll be wrapping up year 2 of the personal outcome measure cycle by the end of June. So I should say thank you all so much. Many of you as providers help us to connect with people on a regular basis, and we couldn't collect this information without you all helping us to do that. So thank you so much for your assistance.
Awesome. Thank you, Christina. I'm not seeing any more Liberty related questions, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, guys, back to our agenda. So we see leadership here. So I'm going to introduce the Central Maryland Regional Office Leadership Team. We have online with us, and I'm going to skip around a bit. One of our deputy directors, Rashawn Moore, is on with us. We have our fiscal director, Wayne Thomas. We have our coordinator of community services director, Nirvana Spriggs. We have our QE director, Ms. Shireen Hodge Brown, our director of special programs, Ms. Kendra McDonald, our nurse QE manager, Marty, I hope I got your title right, Nurse Marty Adams. And we are introducing to you guys for the first time our new CMRO Provider Services Director, Mr. Patrick Ujaba. I think I messed it up, Patrick. I hope I didn't. And so, in addition to Patrick joining our team, Patrick started with the Central Maryland region and he left us for a little bit and he went to OHCQ, but he's back home and we're really excited to have him back. He's been easing into his responsibilities with the provider services team. So, folks, please don't bombard him yet. We're still onboarding. And so, you guys can collectively include him and Travis on any communications related to provider services. But I'm sure you guys have seen his name attached to emails from your provider services team as our new member of staff. In addition, CMRO was now the only team that had updates to share. The Western Maryland region also now have as their provider services director, Sean Haynes. We're happy to have him with us. He's been a really awesome partner, and so really excited to have him on board. And as you guys know, Leslie recently left us to go back into the provider community, and we are pleased to welcome Antoine Williams, who is our new Director of Programs for the state of Maryland. So just a quick updates on new folks in the region, in the department. And so as you guys see the names, you will be familiar with who they are and their roles. So you know who to contact for any concerns you may have related to their teams or any information you might need. Next slide, please, Donna. So, guys, what we're going to do is just a global overview, a lot of very statewide overview processes. So, we're going to first deal with, this is our provider meeting. So, we're starting with our provider services updates. Next slide, please. You would have received letters and you continue to get communication from the provider services team regarding your provider renewal applications. So there are some upcoming changes that are about to be onboarded. Providers will receive letters with new renewal years. It may be 1 year, it may be 3 years. We had discussed this primarily. So we are now switching to a 3-year model. And so renewals will be just for the provider renewal process will be every 3 years. No, your QA plan still needs to be submitted annually so that we can track some stuff, but your renewal will be every 3 years. So you should be able to utilize those letters to OHCQ, and they will again issue licenses every 3 years at the same time as the DDA certification. If you have any changes to your services, your programs you want to add, you want to remove, you certainly can provide revised applications to the team, but we will be rolling to a 3-year renewal process. Children's providers, you have to comply with COMAR 143105.05C, and just of note, 10220202B require that applications to renew must be submitted at least 60 days prior to the renewal date. So we've had providers who have been very diligent in getting the information to us every 60 days prior. And we still continue to remind providers annually to get this into us so that we can do our part so we can get the information over to OHCQ. So again, we just want to encourage y'all to get these packets to us on time so we can get them reviewed. And as you heard Christina speak about our compliance numbers, we need to get those up in order to meet the requirement by our funder. So please work with us. If you have any concerns, if you have any questions, if you have difficulty with understanding what needs to be done, please reach out to Patrick and Travis and the rest of the provider services team for some technical assistance. Next slide, please. MDH electronic provider revalidation and enrollment process. We say ePrep so long, I forgot this was a full mouthful. Okay, folks, so ePrep. In order to get your Medicaid number, you need to do your ePrep application. So revalidations are every 5 years, and so you would have to do your revalidation every 5 years. But in order to get a new base number, if you have exceeded the number of sites, I believe my recollection might be every 20 sites or so, you have to get a new base number and a supplemental for any new site applications. Just a couple of things as we're doing this. Please do not commit someone to a site that you do not have an MA number for. We have gotten a lot of requests for providers to put people into sites because they have the license, they don't have the MA number, and they want to back bill. We said it when we were onboarding everyone, and we're gonna remind you. You cannot bill if you do not have the MA number. We really do not want things to be done not in the appropriate order. So please get your MA number first. It does take a bit of time. The ePrep team is not only servicing DDA, they service the entire state of Maryland. So the earlier you plan, the better. If you have any concerns, please reach out to us. Some providers are really good letting us know when they're stuck, when they haven't heard of anything, and we can forward them to the team at headquarters who is reviewing this process. But please, please, please do not accept anyone or do not call us to say we need this person to start in this site when we do not have an MA number. Important reminders, and we do have some folks that are still having concerns with payment. Your pay to address, the number that you have put into ePrep that said this is where you want your funds to be delivered to, has to match your W-9 exactly. Again, we haven't done this meeting in a while, and what does that mean? If your address is 1234 Main Street and you have it in ePrep as MAINST period, that is what you need to have on your W-9. So if you want to, please verify your addresses, verify your W-9. Also, if you put all the 9 digits of the codes on the W-9, it has to have all of the 9 digits of the zip code on the pay to address. It may seem very simple, but your fellow providers that have run into concerns will share with you that it really is a big headache to resolve. So please, 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 please confirm that the information is uniform. Next slide, please. Required information. This is your form, the ePrep form that you fill into the system. Please ensure that the PT90 addendum, which is the ePrep form, accurately reflects what type of application you are submitting. That means whether it is a new application or a supplemental application. So the instructions can be found on the website, and the link is here. If you're on DDA's website, it is partnering with providers. That will be on the provider page on our website, and that form will be there. Again, consistency is important, which would reduce delays. Next slide, please. So we want to provide some resources. As you can see, this is the provider services updated web page on DDA's website. It tells you the step-by-step process for ePrep instruction and training. If you need a refresher, it's already there. You can get on the website and get a refresher, and it also has the additional resource page. So we want for you, if you have any questions or you're unable to get a response from a staff immediately, go onto the website, try to get a response there. And then if you're still kind of stuck, you guys can circle back with us. The regional office does not review the ePrep applications. We can provide some technical assistance, but the review for the ePrep applications and subsequent follow-up is done by our DDA HQ team. So on to our next topic, nurse required training. So providers, we want you to remember, encourage, ensure that Donna, next slide, I'm sorry. All your nurses are trained. The Senate Bill 405 and our waivers require that all RNs complete the initial 2-day case management and delegation nurse course, the RNCMDN. The regional nurses do maintain an active registry for all active RNs. They do conduct the training. And so we want to encourage you to have your nurses participate. To maintain active status, the RN must complete all required training as identified by the regional nurses. If they are not sure what those are, they're free to shoot our folks an email. They can absolutely let them know what that is. But here we go. The schedule for this year, 2025, will be held in January, March, May, July, September, and November. all of the specific dates are outlined on the DDA training calendar, which you can find again on our website. So that information is available to your nurses. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. The health risk screen tool. Ooh, HRSD, again, another word mumbo jumbo. So the HRSD is reviewed for accuracy during nursing assessments after hospitalizations, injuries, and other changes in conditions. Oftentimes we get to kick back plans because we have a change in a situation and we need the HRSD to be updated, revised. We're getting a lot of HRSDs that are not being revised by the nurses in accordance to our policy. We do want to encourage, remind, um, advise that those HRSD tools be revised and reviewed as identified in our waiver and policy. Service and training considerations are identified in the HRSD and they should be incorporated into the nursing care plan and the risk section of the PCP. There is no nursing support services identified in the waiver for standalone HRSD review. All nursing support services include an HRSD review, and any HRSD review that requires a review must have a nurse identified to provide the nursing support services. And for your purpose, that is an HRSD score of 3 or better. Next slide, please. Just a couple more reminders. Under COMAR 10220211C 2 and COMAR 10220502B Section 5, for staff working with people with an identified swallowing disorder and an order for an altered texture diet and or behavior plan that addresses eating behavior. We encourage vaccination for influenza, RSV. I am not even going to try to read this out. COVID and pneumonia if appropriate. So if we have 2 or more related cases of positive COVID-19 in individuals served or staff members within 10 days in the same setting, the agency should submit an incident report via our PORI policy. Hold on. Yes, so a question that was asked, nurses are required to complete the RN-CMD-DN training within 90 days of employment. Does the new policy, it is not new, require nurses to be trained before beginning to provide CMDN services? Marty, I believe that answer is yes. Please let me know if I'm wrong.
So each RN has within their license the ability to delegate. That's 102711. That's without regard to the 1022 requirements or the Senate bill. In DDA, the Senate Bill 405 and now the DDA waivers require that the nurses take the RN CMDN, and it is recommended that it occur within 90 days. And everybody needs to understand that if the RN doesn't know 102711 or the requirements in DDA because they haven't taken the training, it unfortunately does not excuse them from following the requirements of 102711 or the RN training. So it's much like getting a speeding ticket. If you didn't see that your lane was, or the speed was 40 miles an hour and you're doing 70, you're going to get a ticket. The same is true for the RNs. If they unfortunately, ignorance is not bliss. If they don't know the law, and most nurses do not know the 2711 law, it does not mean they are not accountable. So again, delegation is within the nurse's license. The waiver requires that all nurses be trained, and that in order for folks to be paid, the nurses to be paid, they have to be RN CMDNs. So that's really what that structure is.
Thank you, Marty. Chantel, you asked if there were 2 or more cases of COVID in the same setting within a 10-day, we would need to submit an incident report. Who would we file the report to? Let me, and based on the numbers, you're asking if we have 2 staff and 50 participants, are we to submit incident reports for all of the program participants? Marty?
If all 50 are positive, yes. You
Yeah.
don't submit an incident for the staff, you do submit an incident for the individual. If it is one individual and one staff, you submit the incident for the one individual. If it is 50 individuals, you submit the incident for each of the 50 individuals.
Okay, thank you. And I'm sure I understand why the question, but it's important if we have an outbreak that we're able to track it, which would be the purpose for those incident reports. Next slide, please. Next slide again. Okay, fiscal and waiver updates. So individual must be placed on a waive prior to completing any new paperwork. So we also had a question about that. This was why I kind of waited to respond to this question. You wanted to know who was putting someone on a waive. The CCSs have to reach out to our eligibility waiver team in order to put them on a waive. So if you have someone that has you've been notified that they've fallen out of the waiver, the CCSs should be made aware, and they will they will request that waive request and or waiver slot so that we're able to get the process started. Individuals should not start services until waiver approval. We're still getting a lot of there still appears to be some confusion with a PCP approval versus a waiver approval. Please confirm that before you start services that this person has an approved waiver, which means that there is funding assigned. Waiver documents, including bank statements, submitted should be all pages. We want to remind teams that the program type, the initial, and the date should be at the top of the MA application, the medical assistance application. And please submit your redetermination documents in a timely manner. I'm also going to add that when you submit the redetermination documents, providers, if you guys are the rep payee, please provide a copy of those redetermination documents to the CCSs so they can also put it into the individual's file so we can assist if there are any concerns that the files have been uploaded into the system. LTSS is our client record, and so it is important that the CCSs have a copy of those documents so they can upload it into the client record, and we have a date when those documents were submitted. The slide also indicates the contacts for EDD, as well as the 1-800 number that you may reach out if you have any questions related to EDD and waiver processes. Next slide, please. Fiscal updates. Let me confirm I don't have any eligibility questions. Okay, so again, update in LTSS, community living group home providers, you should be able to now see the contribution to care amounts in LTSS, and you should be able to pull reports. If you're unable to do that, please let us know. You may want to send a ticket to the help desk so we can find out if we need to adjust your permissions or why you're not doing it, why you're not able to see this. But this is an update to the system that should resolve some of the concerns and questions you had related to the contribution to care process. Next slide, please. So, beautiful thing. You guys kind of stuck with us. Some of it was painful, but everybody is in LTSS. So 100% of our providers in the state of Maryland have successfully transitioned into Medicaid LTSS Maryland as of September 1, 2024. One thing though, I keep reviewing plans and I'm still seeing cost detail sheets. Y'all don't need to send those anymore. We're not using those. So save yourself about 10 minutes of having to do those. But we really, really are excited that everyone has successfully transitioned. So all new providers coming in are automatically in LTSS. And so we're really, really excited. And we wanted to say to our providers, our CCSs, thank you so much for working with us on this. It was absolutely a team effort. And to the Central Maryland Regional Office team who walked with you along the way. Thank you to my team for their hard work and their support in getting all of our folks safely transitioned. We continue to provide technical assistance as is necessary. We continue to try to resolve any LTSS concerns as we are aware of them. But we are really excited to be working in this one system related to PCPs and billing. Next slide, please. So, as you guys know, we are popping up onto the legislative sessions. So, just an update, DDA budget hearings are expected to air on Wednesday, February 19, 2025, in room 150. And the Senate Budget and Taxation Committee hearing is on Thursday, February 20th, 2025, in the Amos hearing room. If you are not aware, a lot of these, the hearings are also live, and so you might want to scope out the state's website for any links. But these are, you have the rooms where the budgets will be discussed, and it's a public affair, so you now have the information. Do with it as you will, if you want to participate in the budget hearings. Next slide, please. Oh, we've already done Liberty. And I believe we have made it to the end of our slide. So the quarterly up the Donna, they removed the slide with the meetings, the meeting dates. Can we go to that, please, if you don't mind? Okay. So if you guys want to take a snapshot of this photo, I wanted to do it now. We have identified across the state all of our DDA, all of our provider meetings for the year, the quarterly meetings. So if you want to take a snapshot of the slide, it's just so you have it. These are the dates for all of the regional office provider meetings. As you see, Western Maryland has their meeting tomorrow, and we have Southern Maryland on the 14th and Eastern Maryland on the 16th. So we are working to have our meetings very closely together so that we can provide consistent information across the state to all of our stakeholders. Go back up, Donna, a bit. Okay, let's go back to the top 10 diagnoses. One more down, sorry. Okay. So we pulled our nursing data so that we can give you a snapshot of some of the things that we are tracking this year. As you can see, the primary cause of death for folks across the first quarter were unrelated. We have had some MVA traumas, but mostly we've had some high aspirations, respiratory aspiration pneumonia. So I know Marty has asked so many times for folks to take the training, what is it, Marty? The choking risk training and other trainings that help address those concerns.
Yeah, so currently, like 30 some percent, I think, of our deaths are considered part of the fatal five. The Fatal Five, everybody needs to be aware that there is free training available to all DSPs and nurses in the HRST. DDA has paid for this resource for you all because it's kind of pricey. So there is a resource that should be taken advantage of. I can tell you in Central, it's not being taken advantage of. We have minimal people, DSPs that have been trained, but it is an available resource for training. The Fatal Five would be related to bowel management, choking, aspiration, seizures, infection and sepsis, and dehydration or UTI. So, and then there's also GERD that's available. So this is available training for free to all DSPs and all nurses. You would submit your request for your DSPs to through the identified person for your agency using the spreadsheet right to HRST so the DSPs can have access and the nurses can have access. We do have quite a few deaths of unknown cause. That simply means I can't figure it out and there was no diagnosis given. So if you look at the previous slide for top 10 number of incidents. This is the number of incidents that I review. I review all somatic healthcare incidents. That would be injuries, hospitalizations, chokings, deaths, and medication errors. So for last quarter, it was COVID. Partly it's COVID because I'm still receiving reports for single person incidents. So again, going back to what we said earlier, reporting is for 2 or more related in a 10-day period. So the single person COVIDs don't need to be reported. What has to be understood is that there really isn't a spontaneous generation of COVID, right? So a single person is an oddity. It just means we haven't figured out who the other person is. UTI is high up on our list for incidents, and it's up there with fracture. UTI, please consider this really is training issues that we're talking about in the next couple of slides, training and immunizations. So make sure that the staff are trained in how to do toileting. It is not natural for a person who's never toileted an adult person before to know how to clean, to give perineal care. That has to be taught. We see a lot of infections where the source is actually bacteria from the back end finding its way into the urinary tract. So this is a training issue. We need to make sure we have the right staff doing the right skills at the right time and that those staff have been trained. The same is true for fractures. People are accidentally falling. Of course, that happens to all of us. But then there are people who, no matter how wonderful the one-to-one is, sometimes they catch the person late, or catching the person itself could be a problem and cause a fracture. Be aware that spiral fractures are usually twisting fractures. We need to make sure that we have our staff trained to do the right skills at the right time. And keep in mind that the nurses are not always the right person to do the training. So there are people called physical therapy and occupational therapy. We recommend that you use those folks to help with doing assessments of the environment to reduce falls, and to help with the training on things like Hoyers and transfers and lifting. And then for infection, vaccinate, 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 COVID, RSV, pneumonia vaccines, RSV, the respiratory syncytial virus, that's for people 60 and older. Pneumovax, usually we consider 65 and older. However, If a person has a lot of health risks, cardiac issues, and respiratory issues, they should be vaccinated. Flu vaccine, always important. We're starting to see a lot of cases of flu in the county or in the state, so we're probably going to start seeing flu in our world too. Aspiration, choking, these are a part of that fatal five. It has to do with swallowing food into the wrong pipe. So it's again looking at training and diet. Um, and then we have some behavioral. We had a lot of injury, contusion, laceration, usually related to falls. Sepsis is one of those fatal five. It is within, I think, the first 6 or 7 of our deaths. And just the plug here, sepsis often is missed. It's an infection that's gone wild, and we miss the beginning stages of infection. It is cold outside, hypothermia, low temperatures, 96s, 95s. These are not normal for human living. They're not conducive for human living. Brain death begins at 95. Make sure you have heat in the house and that people are dressed warmly. And if there are low temperatures, please make sure people don't assume it's a bad thermometer. It could be a symptom of sepsis.
Thank you, Marty. Um, There are a couple of questions in the chat that we will follow up after the meeting. This meeting is recorded, so we will have access to those questions, and we will reach out. Marty, one question. Is the Q1 top 10 final diagnosis specific to Central Region, or is that statewide? I think those were just ours, or they
Central region.
statewide? Okay, yes, that's what I thought. So if you serve participants if you operate in multiple regions, if you attend those regional office meetings, some of that data for that particular region will be shared as well. Okay. Are there any questions? Nova is actually on the call, and she was open to respond to any questions related to ePrep. If there was something that anyone had any concerns that they needed, or something that she may be able to address in the meeting. If not, you can reach out to her via email so that she can address your concern directly. Okay, I am not seeing any new questions other than the two I did not answer. So I will reach back out individually. And so if we do not have any additional questions, thank you for joining us this morning. We miss you guys. It's been a minute. We look forward to seeing you at our next provider meeting. But as you know, our team is here to provide support, and we are glad to partner with you. Have a good day, everyone.